If home is where the heart is, mine needs a pacemaker. I'm Ian Calloway, 38 years old, residential architect, and apparently the last person in Portland to realize my marriage was built on quicksand. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday evening in October. Marina, my wife of 7 years, stood in our granite-countered kitchen wearing a dress I'd never seen before, emerald green silk that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her auburn hair was styled in loose waves, and she wore makeup like she was heading to a gallery opening instead of our neighbor's backyard barbecue. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "You look nice," I said, loosening my tie. "New dress? This old thing?" She smoothed the fabric over her hips with practiced casualness. "I've had it forever." Forever in Marina speak, apparently meant since this afternoon. The boutique tags were still tucked under the collar. I caught a glimpse when she bent to check her reflection in the chrome refrigerator. "Ready to go torture ourselves with the Henderson's potato salad?" I asked. Marina's laugh sounded forced. "Actually, I might be a little late. I need to stop by the shop first. Inventory issues." The shop was Marina's boutique clothing store downtown, her pride and joy, and according to our joint checking account, a magnificent money pit. But it made her happy, so I'd learned to smile and nod when she talked about profit margins and seasonal buying trends. "On a Tuesday night? You know how it is." She grabbed her purse, avoiding eye contact. "Tell everyone I'll be there soon." I watched her leave through the kitchen window, noting how she checked her phone 3 times before backing out of our driveway. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The Hendersons' backyard was the usual suburban circus. Kids shrieked around the swing set, while adults clustered near the beer cooler, discussing property taxes and school board elections. I grabbed a Corona and found my best friend Rob Zeller holding court near the grill. "Where's the missus?" Rob asked, flipping burgers with theatrical flair. Rob was a contractor with hands like ham steaks and a mouth that could make sailors blush. He'd been my friend since college, back when we both thought we'd change the world with innovative design and sustainable building practices. Now he built McMansions for tech executives, and I drew blueprints for houses I couldn't afford. "Shop emergency," I said. "On a Tuesday? That's weird." Before I could respond, Marina's friends Gina and Tia materialized beside us like well-dressed vultures. Gina worked in marketing for some startup that sold artisanal dog treats. Tia did something vague in social media consulting. Both treated gossip like an Olympic sport. "Ian!" Gina's voice carried that particular pitch that meant trouble. "Where's Marina? We were just talking about her new energy lately." "Energy?" Tia giggled, swirling her wine. "She's been so vibrant, glowing, really. Must be all that extra work she's been putting in." They exchanged a look that made my stomach clench. I'd seen that look before, the one women shared when they knew something their husbands didn't. "What kind of extra work?" I asked. "Oh, you know," Gina said airily. "Meeting with suppliers, staying late at the boutique. She mentioned working with some new vendor. Lowell something. Really hands-on approach, she said." The name hit me like a slap. Lowell Prewitt. I knew him peripherally. He supplied fixtures and furniture to several local businesses, including Marina's boutique. Mid-40s, drove a restored 1970 Challenger painted an obnoxious shade of orange, and had the kind of swagger that made me want to check if my wallet was still in my pocket. "Lowell Prewitt?" I kept my voice casual. "That's the one." Tia clapped her hands. "Marina says he really gets her vision, understands what she needs." Rob caught my expression and smoothly changed the subject to the Blazers' playoff chances, but the damage was done. I spent the rest of the evening nursing my beer and watching Marina's empty chair at the patio table. She arrived an hour later, slightly breathless, claiming traffic delays. But I noticed how she kept checking her phone, smiling at messages she didn't share. That night, I lay awake listening to Marina's steady breathing and thinking about energy and glowing and hands-on approaches. When I finally drifted off around 3 a.m., I dreamed about houses with faulty foundations, walls that crumbled when you leaned against them. The next morning, Marina was already gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter said she had an early appointment with a new supplier. I made coffee and opened my laptop to review blueprints for the Morrison project, a 6,000-square-foot contemporary monstrosity in the hills. But I couldn't concentrate. Instead, I found myself opening our shared iPad, the one we used for grocery lists and vacation photos. Marina had been using it recently. Her email was still logged in. I shouldn't have looked. In a healthy marriage, you don't spy on your spouse's correspondence. But apparently, we didn't have a healthy marriage. We had whatever this was. This strange new reality where my wife bought expensive clothes in secret and worked late with suppliers who understood her needs. The first email was innocent enough. Lowell thanking Marina for the coffee meeting, looking forward to discussing inventory options. Professional, boring. The second email, sent 3 days later, was less professional. Lowell mentioning how much he'd enjoyed their dinner, how refreshing it was to meet someone who appreciated quality. By the fourth email, they'd moved past appreciating quality and into appreciating each other. Lowell wrote about Marina's incredible energy and how their connection was unlike anything he'd experienced. Marina's responses were worse. She called him magnetic and exactly what she needed. She complained about feeling unappreciated at home, misunderstood by people who didn't share her passions. People like her husband, apparently. The most recent exchange from yesterday made my hands shake. Lowell. Can't stop thinking about yesterday afternoon. You're incredible, Em. When can I see you again? Marina. Tonight. Same place. I'll tell Ian I'm working late. He never questions it. I closed the laptop and sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the granite countertops and custom cabinets I'd designed for our dream home. Everything looked the same, but the foundation had shifted. The walls were still standing, but I could feel them starting to lean. My phone buzzed. A text from Marina. Working late again tonight, don't wait up. Love you. Love you. 2 words that used to mean everything, now feeling like a demolition notice. I called in sick to work and spent the day planning. Not revenge, not yet. Just reconnaissance. If my marriage was collapsing, I wanted to understand the structural damage before deciding whether to renovate or tear down completely. The thing about being an architect is that you learn to see problems before they become disasters. A foundation crack that looks cosmetic might indicate serious settling issues. A small roof leak can rot the entire frame if left untreated. My marriage had roof leaks. I spent Wednesday morning at Powell's Books, reading relationship advice that made me want to throw things. Communicate openly. Rebuild trust through transparency. Consider couples counseling. Right. I'd suggest couples counseling right after Marina finished her afternoon delight with Lowell the fixture king. Around noon, I drove downtown to Marina's boutique. Through the window, I could see her arranging scarves with the focused intensity she usually reserved for critiquing my cooking. She looked beautiful, professional, completely normal, like she wasn't systematically dismantling our marriage one secret meeting at a time. I didn't go in. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. At 2:30, an obnoxious orange Challenger pulled up outside the boutique. Lowell Prewitt emerged like he was auditioning for a cologne commercial. Designer jeans, expensive leather jacket, sunglasses that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. He had salt and pepper hair styled with too much product and the kind of confident stride that screamed, "I take what I want." Marina met him at the door. Even from across the street, I could see her face light up in a way that made my chest tight. She touched his arm as they talked, leaning in close, laughing at something he said. They left together in his car. I followed them to the Heathman Hotel downtown. Classy choice. Marina always did have expensive tastes. They emerged 2 hours later looking disheveled and satisfied. Marina's carefully styled hair was messed up, and Lowell had lipstick on his collar, my wife's lipstick, the shade she'd worn to our anniversary dinner last month. I drove home and threw up in our master bathroom. That evening, Marina returned with shopping bags and a story about visiting suppliers in Beaverton. She'd bought new lingerie, she said, to surprise me. Black lace that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "You don't seem excited," she said, modeling the negligee in our bedroom mirror. "Just tired." "You're always tired lately." Her reflection frowned at mine. "When's the last time we did anything spontaneous? Exciting?" I wanted to ask, when's the last time she'd done anything exciting with her actual husband, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I mumbled something about work stress and pretended to fall asleep while she sighed dramatically and scrolled through her phone. The next morning, I called Rob. "I need a favor," I said, "and probably a lawyer." "Jesus, Ian, what happened?" "Marina's having an affair." Silence. Then, "You sure?" "I followed them to a hotel yesterday." "Shit. I'm sorry, man. What do you need?" What I needed was a time machine and a wife who didn't think the grass was greener in Lowell Prewitt's expensive jeans. What I could actually get was legal advice and emotional support from the only person who'd never lied to me. "Meet me for lunch. Bring the name of that divorce lawyer who handled your cousin's case." "The Barracuda? Sarah Klein?" "Ian, are you sure you want to go nuclear?" Nuclear. Like I was the one destroying everything. Like I was the one sneaking around hotel rooms and lying about working late. "Just bring her number." We met at a sports bar in Selwood. Rob arrived looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, clutching a business card like it might explode. "Sarah Klein," he said, sliding the card across the table. "Fair warning, she's expensive and she doesn't mess around. Took my cousin's ex for everything but his dental fillings." I studied the card. Sarah Klein, family law attorney. The address was downtown, walking distance from Marina's boutique. Convenient. "What's your endgame here?" Rob asked. "You want to save the marriage or salt the earth?" "I want the truth, and I want Marina to face consequences for once in her life." Rob raised an eyebrow. "Consequences?" "She's been lying to me for months, Rob. Spending our money on clothes and hotels and God knows what else. Making me look like an idiot in front of our friends. Did you know Gina and Tia were gossiping about Marina's energy at the Hendersons' barbecue? They knew before I did. That's rough. It gets worse. I checked our credit card statements this morning. Marina's been charging dinners and shopping trips I never knew about. Expensive stuff. She bought a $500 dress last week and told me she'd had it forever." Rob whistled low. "Financial infidelity on top of the regular kind?" "Exactly. So yeah, I want consequences. I want her to explain to everyone why our marriage ended. I want her to face the people she's been lying to and admit what she's done." "And Lowell?" I thought about the cocky way he'd strutted into Marina's boutique, like he owned the place, like he owned her. "Lowell's married too, Emily Prewitt, works as a legal assistant downtown. I looked her up online." "You're going to tell his wife?" "I'm going to tell everyone. Marina wants excitement and spontaneity. She's about to get more than she bargained for." Rob looked worried. "Ian, I get that you're pissed. But maybe you should think about this. Once you blow everything up, there's no going back." "There's already no going back. Marina made sure of that when she decided our marriage was boring and Lowell Prewitt was exciting." I called Sarah Klein that afternoon and made an appointment for Friday morning. Then I spent Thursday evening documenting everything. Screenshots of emails, photos of credit card statements, a timeline of Marina's lies and excuses. Marina came home late again, claiming she'd been reorganizing inventory. She smelled like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek with lips that had probably been on Lowell's mouth hours earlier. "Productive," I said. "Very productive." She smiled and went upstairs to shower, humming something under her breath. She seemed happy, lighter, like adultery agreed with her. I sat in my home office surrounded by blueprints and architectural drawings and planned the controlled demolition of my marriage. Some structures couldn't be saved. Sometimes you had to tear everything down and start over with a clean foundation. Marina's affair had given me the perfect excuse to do exactly that. Sarah Klein's office occupied the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and steel and intimidating views of the Willamette River. The waiting room smelled like expensive leather and other people's misery. Sarah herself was exactly what Rob had promised, a well-dressed barracuda in Armani and pearls. Mid-50s, silver hair pulled back in a perfect chignon, eyes like a shark who'd skipped breakfast. "Mr. Calloway," she said, shaking my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts. "Rob Zeller says you need someone who doesn't believe in mercy." "That's accurate." She gestured to a chair across from her mahogany desk. "Tell me everything." I laid out the evidence like architectural plans, organized, detailed, devastating. The emails, the credit card statements, the hotel receipts I'd found in Marina's purse. Sarah took notes in precise handwriting, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "How long have you been married?" 7 years. "Children?" "No." "Premarital assets?" "The house is mine. I bought it 2 years before we met, put it in both our names after the wedding. Biggest mistake of my life." Sarah's smile was predatory. "Actually, Mr. Calloway, that might work in your favor. Oregon law recognizes premarital property claims, especially with proper documentation. Do you have the original purchase documents?" "Everything. I'm an architect. I keep records." "Excellent. What about her business?" "The boutique is technically half mine. I co-signed the loan, helped with the initial investment, but I want out of that money pit anyway." "And what exactly do you want from this divorce?" I leaned back in the leather chair and considered the question. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? Or just the satisfaction of watching Marina face consequences for once in her entitled life? I want her to admit what she's done, publicly. I want our friends to know why the marriage ended, and I want her boyfriend's wife to know what kind of man she's married to. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Revenge isn't typically a legal strategy, Mr. Calloway. Then let's call it truth-telling. Marina's been lying to everyone. Me, our friends, probably her customers. She's been spending our joint money on her affair, lying about working late, making me look like an idiot at social gatherings. I want the lies to stop. That I can work with. Sarah made another note. I'll need copies of everything you've shown me, plus any additional documentation you can gather. Bank statements, phone records if you can access them, witness statements from friends who might have suspected the affair. What about confronting them directly? I'd advise against it until we have all our ducks in a row. Emotional confrontations rarely go well, and we don't want to give your wife a chance to hide assets or destroy evidence. But I wasn't planning to wait for legal proceedings to run their course. Sarah could handle the divorce paperwork. I had other plans for Marina and Lowell. That afternoon, I called Emily Prewitt's office. She worked for a law firm in the Pearl District, handling real estate closings and contract disputes. According to her LinkedIn profile, she'd been married to Lowell for 12 years. Emily Prewitt, she answered on the second ring. Professional, efficient. Mrs. Prewitt, this is Ian Calloway. I think we need to talk about our spouses. A long pause. I'm sorry? My wife Marina and your husband Lowell. They've been having an affair for the past several months. I have documentation if you'd like to see it. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, where do you want to meet? We agreed on a coffee shop in the Pearl District, walking distance from her office. Emily Prewitt turned out to be nothing like Marina. Practical clothes, minimal makeup, the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that suggested she didn't suffer fools gladly. Show me, she said without preamble. I slid a folder across the table. Printed emails, credit card receipts, photos I'd taken of Lowell's car outside the Heathman Hotel. Emily reviewed everything with the methodical precision of someone who'd spent years reading legal documents. "Snake," she said finally. "I knew something was wrong. He's been working late, taking mysterious phone calls, buying new clothes. Last week he came home smelling like perfume and claimed it was from hugging a client." "I'm sorry." Emily's laugh was bitter. "Don't be sorry. Be useful. What's your plan?" "My plan? You didn't call me just to share information, Mr. Calloway. You want something. What is it?" I liked Emily Prewitt. She was smart, direct, and clearly as angry as I was. "I want them to face consequences. Real ones. Not just lawyers and paperwork, but actual embarrassment. I want our friends and their customers and everyone in their social circle to know what they've done. Public humiliation." "Exactly." Emily closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. "I can work with that. When do we start?" The plan we developed was simple and devastating. Marina and Lowell thought they were being clever, sneaking around behind our backs. They had no idea that their betrayed spouses were now comparing notes and planning their downfall. "There's a dinner party tomorrow night," Emily said. "The Hendersons are hosting again. Some kind of fundraiser for the school district. Marina and Lowell will both be there." "Perfect. I'll bring copies of the evidence. You bring your lawyer." "Sarah Klein doesn't do house calls." Emily smiled for the first time since we'd met. "She will for this." That evening, Marina came home with shopping bags and news about the Hendersons' dinner party. "It's a fundraiser for new playground equipment," she said, unpacking what looked like another expensive dress. "We should make an appearance. Show community support." "Absolutely," I agreed. "Wouldn't miss it." Marina seemed surprised by my enthusiasm, but she didn't question it. She was too busy texting someone, probably coordinating with Lowell about their public charade. I went to bed that night feeling something I hadn't experienced in months: anticipation. Tomorrow night, the lies would stop. Tomorrow night, Marina and Lowell would learn that actions have consequences. The foundation of their little affair was about to collapse. The Hendersons' house was decorated like a campaign headquarters crossed with a preschool. Red, white, and blue bunting draped over playground equipment displays. Donation jars scattered around the living room like political lawn signs. Marina had chosen her outfit carefully, a navy blue dress that managed to look both respectable and attractive, paired with heels that added 3 inches to her height and probably cost more than most people's monthly car payments. She'd spent an hour on her makeup, creating the kind of flawless facade that required professional-grade concealer and strategic highlighting. "You look beautiful," I said, meaning it. Marina had always been stunning. It was one of the things that had attracted me to her in the first place. Tonight, knowing what I knew, her beauty felt like a weapon she'd been using against me. "Thank you." She seemed nervous, checking her phone repeatedly as we drove to the Hendersons. "I hope this goes well." "I'm sure it will be memorable." The party was already in full swing when we arrived. The usual suburban cast of characters clustered around the appetizer table, discussing property taxes and school board politics with the passionate intensity that only homeowners could muster. I spotted Lowell immediately. He stood near the bar wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, holding court with a group of men who seemed impressed by his stories about classic car restoration and business success. He had the kind of magnetic confidence that drew people into his orbit, made them want to be associated with his success. Marina's face lit up when she saw him, then quickly schooled itself into polite neutrality. But I caught the look they exchanged, intimate, knowing, full of shared secrets. "I'm going to mingle," Marina announced, already moving toward Lowell's group. "Great idea. I'll find us some drinks." Instead of heading to the bar, I positioned myself near the front door and waited. According to our plan, Emily and Sarah would arrive together at 8:30, giving Marina and Lowell time to get comfortable, to let their guard down. Rob appeared at my elbow, looking worried. "You sure about this, man? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." "There's already no going back." But maybe you could handle this privately. Divorce lawyers, mediation, all that civilized stuff. I watched Marina laugh at something Lowell said, her hand briefly touching his arm in a gesture that looked casual but felt intimate. She made it public when she started parading around with him at social events, when she let our friends gossip about her energy and glow, when she made me look like an oblivious idiot. Fair point. At exactly 8:30, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emily Prewitt and Sarah Klein standing on the Hendersons' front porch like well-dressed harbingers of doom. Emily had traded her usual business casual for a black cocktail dress that made her look like she was attending a funeral. Sarah wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than most people's rent, carrying a leather briefcase that suggested serious business. "Ladies," I said, "perfect timing." The party noise dimmed slightly as we entered. New arrivals always drew attention at suburban gatherings. I watched Marina's face as she noticed Emily, saw confusion flicker across her features. She didn't recognize Lowell's wife, but something about Emily's presence clearly made her uncomfortable. Lowell's reaction was more dramatic. The red liquid drained from his face when he saw Emily, and he nearly dropped his whiskey. He excused himself from his conversation and started moving toward the door, but Emily intercepted him with the precision of a heat-seeking missile. "Hello, darling," Emily said loudly enough for half the room to hear. "Surprised to see me?" The party chatter faded completely. Everyone turned to watch the drama unfold, sensing vulnerability with the instinctive awareness of suburban social predators. "Emily," Lowell stammered, "I didn't know you were coming." "I'll bet you didn't," Emily's voice carried across the room like a prosecutor addressing a jury. "Just like you didn't know I'd find out about your afternoon hotel visits with Marina Calloway." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Marina's face cycle through confusion, recognition, and pure panic as she realized what was happening. "I don't know what you're talking about," Marina said, but her voice shook. Sarah Klein stepped forward, opening her briefcase with theatrical precision. "Perhaps these will refresh your memory, Mrs. Calloway." She produced a stack of printed emails and photographs, spreading them across the Hendersons' coffee table like evidence in a criminal trial. The hotel receipts, the romantic messages, the timeline of lies and deceptions, all laid out for everyone to see. "These are private," Marina protested. "Nothing's private when you use joint email accounts and credit cards," Sarah replied smoothly, "especially when you're spending marital assets on extramarital activities." The crowd pressed closer, drawn by the spectacle like rubberneckers at a car accident. I recognized faces from our social circle, neighbors, acquaintances, people who'd been gossiping about Marina's energy and glow for months. "This is ridiculous," Lowell said, trying to regain his composure. "Emily, we should discuss this at home. Like we discussed your late nights and mysterious phone calls." Emily's voice dripped with contempt. "Like we discussed the credit card charges for restaurants I've never been to and hotels I've never seen." She pulled out her own stack of documents, Lowell's financial records, showing a pattern of suspicious expenses that matched Marina's timeline perfectly. "You're both pathetic," Emily continued, addressing the room like a prosecutor delivering closing arguments. "Sneaking around like teenagers, lying to your spouses, spending money that wasn't yours to spend. And for what? A few afternoons at the Heathman Hotel?" Marina's carefully applied makeup was starting to run. "Ian, please, we can work this out privately." "Privately?" I stepped forward, feeling the weight of months of humiliation and betrayal. "Like you worked out your affair privately? Like you privately decided our marriage was boring and Lowell Prewitt was exciting?" The crowd murmured appreciatively. Nothing drew suburban attention like a good public meltdown. "You made this public," I continued, my voice carrying across the silent room. "Every time you lied about working late, every time you spent our money on clothes to impress your boyfriend, every time you let our friends gossip about your mysterious new energy while I stood there looking like an idiot, Marina's face crumpled. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. For months. While you came home and kissed me with the same mouth you'd been using on him. While you wore lingerie bought with our joint credit card to seduce me after spending the afternoon in bed with your supplier. The crowd was eating it up. I could see phones being pulled out, social media posts being composed in real time. By tomorrow morning, everyone in our social circle would know exactly why the Calloway marriage had ended. This is insane, Lowell said, making one last attempt at damage control. Emily, I can explain everything. Explain this, Emily said, pulling out her phone and playing a voicemail. Lowell's voice filled the room, telling Marina how incredible she was, how their connection was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, how he couldn't wait to see her again. The recording played for 30 seconds that felt like an eternity. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Marina broke first. She started crying, not delicate tears that preserved her makeup, but ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that destroyed her carefully constructed facade. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm so sorry. Sorry you got caught, I said. Not sorry you did it. Lowell tried to put his arm around Marina, some misguided attempt at solidarity, but Emily blocked him with the efficiency of a linebacker. Don't you dare comfort her, Emily snapped. You've done enough damage. Sarah Klein closed her briefcase with a definitive click. Mr. Calloway, Mrs. Prewitt, I believe we have everything we need for the divorce proceedings. Mrs. Calloway, Mr. Prewitt, you'll be hearing from our offices soon. She handed business cards to both Marina and Lowell with the casual efficiency of someone dealing with particularly unpleasant paperwork. This isn't over, Marina said, trying to salvage some dignity from the wreckage. Actually, I replied, it is. 7 years of marriage ended because you decided you deserved better than the man who built you a dream house and supported your failing business. I hope Lowell was worth it. Marina and Lowell left together, walking through a crowd that parted like they were carrying something contagious. I watched them go, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Relief. The foundation had finally collapsed. Now, I could start building something new. The aftermath of the Hendersons' dinner party played out like a slow-motion explosion across our social media feeds and suburban gossip networks. By Saturday morning, everyone in our extended social circle knew about Marina's affair, complete with photographic evidence and audio recordings. Marina had spent Friday night at Gina's house, according to the frantic text messages she'd been sending me. Gina and Tia, her former enablers, had apparently experienced a sudden attack of moral clarity once the affair became public knowledge. Nothing like social embarrassment to clarify people's ethics. I spent Friday evening changing the locks on our house. My house, as Sarah Klein had corrected me. Marina could retrieve her belongings later, under supervision, but she wouldn't be living here anymore. Rob came over Saturday morning with coffee and donuts, surveying the damage like a contractor assessing a demolition site. How are you holding up? He asked. Better than I expected. I meant it. The anger and humiliation I'd been carrying for weeks had transformed into something cleaner. Resolution. Marina's been calling everyone, trying to do damage control. Gina posted something on Facebook about supporting friends through difficult times, then deleted it an hour later when people started commenting. What kind of comments? Rob grinned. The kind that suggest your public humiliation strategy worked. Nobody's taking Marina's side on this one. Adultery doesn't play well with the suburban crowd. My phone rang. Marina's number. Don't answer it, Rob advised. I answered anyway. What do you want, Marina? Ian, please. We need to talk. I can explain everything. You explained everything last night, in front of 50 witnesses. That was cruel. You humiliated me. The audacity was breathtaking. I humiliated you? Marina, you've been humiliating me for months. Every lie, every secret meeting, every dollar you spent on your affair, That was you humiliating me. I never meant for it to go this far. What did you mean exactly? To keep sneaking around indefinitely? To keep lying to my face while you screwed around with Lowell Prewitt? Silence on the other end. Then, I want to come home. Get my things. Fine. Tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock. Rob will be here as a witness. A witness? To make sure you only take what belongs to you. And Marina? The expensive clothes you bought for your affair? Those stay here. They were purchased with joint funds for the purpose of adultery. Consider them evidence. I hung up before she could respond. Sunday afternoon arrived with the kind of gray October drizzle that made everything look like a crime scene. Marina showed up precisely at 2 o'clock, driving Gina's car and looking like she hadn't slept in days. She'd dressed down for the occasion, jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer ensemble, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. The look was probably calculated to generate sympathy, but it just made her seem smaller somehow, less significant. "Ian," she said when I opened the door, "thank you for letting me come." "This isn't a social visit, Marina. Get your stuff and go." Rob positioned himself in the living room like a bouncer, arms crossed, watching Marina move through our house like a stranger. She packed quickly and efficiently, focusing on personal items and avoiding eye contact. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, she hesitated at the closet full of expensive clothes she'd bought during her affair. "These are mine," she said, reaching for the emerald green dress she'd worn to the Hendersons' barbecue. "Purchased with joint funds during the course of your extramarital relationship," I replied, quoting Sarah Klein's legal language. "They stay." "That's petty." "That's justice. You want to play dress-up for your boyfriend? Buy your own clothes with your own money." Marina's face flushed, but she didn't argue. She finished packing in silence, loading 2 suitcases and a box of personal items into Gina's car. "Ian," she said, as she prepared to leave, "I know you hate me right now, but we were happy once. Doesn't that count for something?" I looked at her standing in our driveway, my driveway, surrounded by the remnants of our shared life, and felt nothing but tired relief. "We were happy when you were pretending to be someone else," I said. "The person I married wouldn't have done what you did. She wouldn't have lied and cheated and spent our money on another man. That person apparently never existed." Marina's eyes filled with tears, but I was done being manipulated by her emotions. "Goodbye, Marina." She drove away without looking back. I watched until Gina's car disappeared around the corner, then went inside and poured myself a whiskey. "That went better than expected," Rob said. "The hard part's over." But I was wrong. The hard part was just beginning. Monday morning brought news that Lowell's classic car dealership was hemorrhaging customers. Apparently, public adultery was bad for business in Portland's tight-knit classic car community. Several clients had canceled orders, and his main investor was asking uncomfortable questions about Lowell's judgment and character. Emily Prewitt had filed for divorce and was seeking half of everything, including the dealership. Her lawyer was apparently even more ruthless than Sarah Klein, if such a thing were possible. Marina's boutique was facing similar problems. Word of her affair had spread through the local fashion community like wildfire, and several suppliers were reconsidering their relationships with someone who'd been sleeping with a competitor for better deals. By Tuesday, both Marina and Lowell were discovering that actions have consequences, and those consequences extended far beyond their personal relationships. "They're trying to blame you," Rob reported over lunch. "Marina's telling people you're vindictive, that you destroyed her reputation out of spite. Let her talk. Everyone saw the evidence. Everyone heard the recordings. They know who's responsible for this mess. Emily Prewitt called this morning, wants to take you to dinner, says you deserve a celebration." I considered the offer. Emily had been a good ally during the confrontation, and we'd both achieved our goal of exposing our cheating spouses. But I wasn't ready to celebrate yet. There was still one more piece of business to handle. Wednesday evening, I received a call that changed everything. Mr. Calloway? The voice was unfamiliar, male, nervous. This is David Chen from Pacific Northwest Design Associates. I think you need to know something about your wife's business dealings. David Chen turned out to be a young architect who'd been contracted by Marina's boutique for store renovations. What he'd discovered during the project made me freeze. She's been selling your designs, he said when we met at a coffee shop downtown. House plans, commercial blueprints, even some of your award-winning residential projects. She's got copies of everything, and she's been passing them off as original concepts to wealthy clients. He showed me photographs on his phone, my architectural drawings with Marina's boutique letterhead, my innovative sustainable housing designs being marketed as exclusive custom concepts. How long has this been going on? At least 6 months, maybe longer. She's been working with Lowell Prewitt to identify potential buyers, wealthy clients looking for unique architectural designs. They've sold at least a dozen of your plans, maybe more. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. Marina hadn't just cheated on our marriage, she'd been stealing my professional work, my creative property, and selling it for profit. Do you have documentation? David nodded. Everything. Contracts, payment records, email correspondence. I kept copies because something felt wrong about the whole operation. I called Sarah Klein immediately. Intellectual property theft, she said, after reviewing David's evidence. This changes everything, Mr. Calloway. We're not just talking about divorce anymore. This is criminal fraud. What are my options? Civil lawsuit for damages, criminal charges for theft of intellectual property, and immediate injunctions to stop any further sales. Plus, we can seize all profits from the illegal sales as restitution. Do it. All of it? Everything. Marina wants to play games? Let's play for keeps. Thursday morning, Marina's world collapsed completely. Sarah Klein's team served her with a lawsuit for intellectual property theft, while the district attorney's office opened a criminal investigation into her fraudulent business practices. The boutique was shut down pending investigation, with all assets frozen until the case was resolved. Marina's bank accounts were seized, her credit cards canceled, and her professional reputation destroyed beyond repair. Lowell fared even worse. As Marina's business partner in the fraud scheme, he faced criminal charges that could result in prison time. His classic car dealership was forced into bankruptcy, and Emily's divorce lawyer was circling like a shark. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Marina again. Ian, please, you have to stop this. They're going to arrest me. You should have thought about that before you stole my work and sold it for profit. I never meant for it to go this far. It started small, just a few designs to help the boutique stay afloat. Then Lowell got involved, and everything spiraled out of control. So it's Lowell's fault? He convinced me it wasn't really stealing. Said you'd never miss a few old blueprints, that we were just maximizing their value. The excuses were pathetic, but they revealed something important. Marina was ready to throw Lowell under the bus to save herself. Tell that to the district attorney, I said. Maybe he'll believe you. Ian, I'll do anything. I'll admit to the affair publicly, apologize to everyone, give you everything in the divorce. Just please don't let them arrest me. Marina, you stole my work. You sold my designs to strangers and kept the profits. You committed fraud, probably felony fraud. That's not something I can just forgive and forget. But we were married. Doesn't that mean something? It meant something before you decided to destroy it. Now it's just a legal technicality. I hung up and called Sarah Klein. She's trying to negotiate, I reported. Let her try. The evidence is overwhelming, and the district attorney wants to make an example. Intellectual property theft is a serious crime, especially when it involves this much money. How much money? Based on the contracts David Chen provided, at least $200,000 in illegal sales. Possibly more. $200,000. My work, my creativity, my professional reputation. All stolen and sold by the woman who'd promised to love and honor me. Saturday morning brought the final act of Marina's downfall. The police arrested her at Gina's house on charges of intellectual property theft, fraud, and money laundering. The local news covered the story, complete with footage of Marina being led away in handcuffs. Lowell was arrested the same day at what remained of his car dealership. The charges against him were even more serious. He'd been the one handling the financial side of the fraud scheme, laundering the profits through his business accounts. I watched the news coverage from my living room, surrounded by the architectural drawings and design awards that represented my life's work. Everything Marina had tried to steal and sell was still here, still mine. Rob came over that evening with beer and takeout Chinese food. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Like justice? Any regrets?" I considered the question seriously. Marina was facing prison time. Her business was destroyed, her reputation ruined, her future uncertain. Lowell was in even worse shape. Bankruptcy, criminal charges, a wife who wanted to take him for everything he had left. 6 months ago, I would have felt sorry for them. I would have tried to find a way to forgive and move forward. But 6 months ago, I'd believed in the person Marina pretended to be. "No regrets," I said. "They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences." Sunday morning, Emily Prewitt called with news. "Lowell's lawyer wants to make a deal," she said. "Full confession, cooperation with the district attorney, complete financial disclosure in exchange for reduced charges." "What about Marina?" "Her lawyer's pushing for the same deal, but she doesn't have as much to offer. Lowell was the mastermind, she was just the supplier of stolen goods." Poetic justice. Indeed. "Ian, I wanted to thank you. If you hadn't been brave enough to expose their affair, I never would have discovered the fraud. Lowell would have kept stealing your work and laundering money through his business indefinitely." We helped each other. Yes, we did. And now they're both going to pay for what they did. Monday morning brought the final chapter of the story. Marina's lawyer called Sarah Klein to discuss a plea bargain. Marina was willing to plead guilty to all charges, make full restitution, and serve whatever sentence the court deemed appropriate. "She's completely broken," Sarah reported. "No fight left in her at all. The reality of prison time has apparently clarified her thinking." "What kind of sentence are we talking about?" "With full cooperation and restitution, probably 2 to 3 years. Lowell's looking at 5 to 7. He was the ringleader, and he has a more extensive criminal history." "Criminal history?" "Turns out your wife had excellent taste in criminal partners. Lowell's been running various fraud schemes for years. The intellectual property theft was just his latest venture." That afternoon, I received a letter from Marina. Written from the county jail where she was being held pending sentencing, it was a rambling, desperate attempt at explanation and apology. She claimed to love me, to regret everything, to wish she could undo the past year. She blamed Lowell for corrupting her, blamed financial pressure for driving her to crime, blamed everyone but herself for the choices that had destroyed our marriage and her future. I read the letter once, then fed it into my paper shredder. Some foundations couldn't be repaired. Some structures were too damaged to save. Sometimes the only option was complete demolition and starting over with clean ground. Marina had made her choice when she decided our marriage wasn't exciting enough. She'd made her choice when she started stealing my work and selling it for profit. She'd made her choice when she chose Lowell Prewitt over the man who'd loved her for 7 years. Now she could live with the consequences of those choices. I had a new life to build, and this time I'd be more careful about the foundation. The blueprints for my future would be drawn by me alone, built on solid ground, designed to last. Marina and Lowell had taught me an important lesson about structural integrity. When you discover serious foundation problems, you don't try to patch them up and hope for the best. You tear everything down and start over. And that's exactly what I intended to do.